Selection criteria for national teams, folks, with Owen Farrell rumoured to be heading to France, not confirmed as I sit here recording this, and with Razor coming in as head coach of New Zealand, rumours about that he might want to relax selection criteria. What are the selection criteria for the different Tier 1 countries as to restrictions placed on coaches on which players they can choose for their sides? What are the benefits and drawbacks of each of these kind of systems? Why do they do it? We'll go through them and you guys can let us know your thoughts on which system works best. Maybe not necessarily a one-size-fits-all for this one, but we'll go through them. And as I said, you guys let us know your thoughts. So, do you go open or do you go restricted? Some countries don't have any restrictions on who they can choose. As long as you meet World Rugby's eligibility criteria, you are happy, or the coaches are happy or able to select that player. There's no additional selection criteria placed upon coaches by the various rugby unions. You're looking at South Africa, Argentina, Scotland, Japan, Italy. No restrictions on the coaches, and I think pretty much all of Tier 2. I don't think any of the Tier 2 teams have restrictions on which players they can choose. They just want to have the best players available, which is certainly one of the benefits. That you want to field your strongest team. You don't have to kind of make sacrifices or and ah about which player is going to step in for which guy who's not available. Everybody is available as long as they're kind of fit and healthy. So you get the best team available. For me, that's the most obvious win if you've got an open system like these countries have. Also, in some cases, like I would say especially Italy and for Scotland, because they only have 2 professional teams, you're looking at opening up more spots domestically for guys to come through. If you've got a guy playing abroad, probably playing at a pretty high level, if he's been able to kind of pick up a contract somewhere else, him being abroad means a spot opens up for some other youngster to come through. Because if it's only 2 teams, you're looking at only a pretty small pool of guys who are getting regular game time. So a spot gets freed up. And in terms of financially, a lot of the times guys are able to earn bigger bucks by playing somewhere else. So open criteria certainly has that benefit. Guys can earn more money. Coaches can pick the best players. Spots can come through for guys domestically. And in some cases, the guys can get a higher level experience by playing abroad. That's a different experience anyway. Like the Japanese, I don't think restrict any of their players from going abroad. There's a handful of guys that have played in Super Rugby, played in the top 14, and arguably, they're playing at a higher level. So getting that better experience and then bringing it back to Japan when they either return to the Japanese domestic league or play for the national team. So certainly there's an argument for having that kind of open policy. Now, interestingly, South Africa and Argentina both used to have restricted policies. South Africa used to be in the camp with the Wallabies in Wales in terms of having once you've played X number of games, I think it was 30 with South Africa, then you can be eligible for the Springboks while playing abroad. But they got rid of that rule when Rusty came along, basically for financial reasons, saying that they can't go toe-to-toe with the other countries in terms of the pay that they can offer players. So don't do it. And Argentina used to have it, have to be playing in Super Rugby, largely to get guys back in Argentina playing for the Jaguares, but with that competition went by the wayside, they kind of had to axe that rule as well. So, yeah, these countries are all open, happy to select everybody. Now, Wales and Australia are kind of in the middle. You're able to pick guys from abroad, but only once they've played a certain number of games. So Wales is 25. It used to be, I think, 60. And Argentina, why do I keep calling Argentina? Australia's ghetto law means, I think it's 30 caps or 5 years in Super Rugby. You have to play, and then you will be still eligible to play for your national team, but you kind of have to pay your dues first. So they're trying to have the best of both worlds. They're trying to, I guess, protect their local game by keeping the stars at home and not just focusing on guys abroad. Australia also has the rule, I think it's 3 guys is the maximum they're allowed to choose who are overseas based. So you got to be top dog to be able to selected from abroad. Wales is a little bit looser in that regard. And also Wales has got an exception where if you're uncapped and playing abroad, but you're Welsh eligible, you can still be chosen. So, yeah, a little bit of a loophole. Now, the restricted countries, France is a bit of an exception. I probably could have put them on the other side of the board because I don't think you have to be playing in the top 14, but their entire squad is playing in the top 14 because they get good money and it's a high level, why wouldn't you want to play there, basically? But you are restricted in terms of you have to have a French passport to play for the French national team. Ireland, New Zealand, and England are a bit more restricted. Ireland, I don't know if they have a hard and fast policy about you have to play in Ireland, one of the 4 provinces, but they have certainly a very hardline preference. They have made exceptions, I think, very rarely in the past. I think Sexton was one of the exceptions when he was in France. But yeah, Ireland, it's definitely a big-time preference. New Zealand, you have to be contracted to a New Zealand Rugby Union contract, although there is a little bit of wiggle room with sabbaticals. You can have a New Zealand Rugby contract with a loophole in there that allows you to go to Japan for a year of Super Rugby and then still come back. Instead of playing Super Rugby, you play in Japan and then come still play for the All Blacks. And England, you basically have to be playing in the Premiership. But there has been exceptions, with all those clubs going bust last year, guys who were out of a job and had to find work, picked up jobs outside the Premiership and were still eligible for England at the World Cup. So, yeah, all three kind of have a little bit of wiggle room, but are the kind of three most hardline countries in terms of trying to keep that kind of level of control. Now, why would they want to keep that level of control? Partly, I think, especially in the case of New Zealand and England, probably Australia and Wales to a degree as well, is to protect that domestic competition. They want players, local players, playing in the local competition. There's certainly an engagement factor about keeping guys home. You want fans turning out. You want those kids who are looking up to these players to see those guys in the flesh. So there's certainly an element of wanting to keep that integrity of the local competition. There's also a control factor because if you're, especially the central contractor guys like the Kiwi guys and the Irish guys, to a degree, I think some of the Aussie guys as well, the national team head coach can influence what position these guys are playing. And certainly they are able to rest guys at times. Like you'll see guys who are playing outside of their native country playing when there is a test match on outside of a international test window, and they are not eligible because their club wants their pound of flesh. They have to play for their club. Whereas if you're playing in England or you're playing in New Zealand or Ireland, you can basically do what your national team coach wants because the club can't force you to play because they're on the same page in that regard. So there's certainly an element of not overworking players if you've got that kind of restriction on them. You don't have to let them play club match, and then straight into international action for 2 weeks and then straight back into club action. You can kind of control that bit of game time so they're not getting overworked. And certainly there's a cohesion factor as well. If you're only picking from, like in New Zealand's case, it's only 5 teams. A lot of these guys, when they go into the All Blacks, have played with each other for their Super Rugby side. So you're able to kind of maintain some of those combinations, which you're not able to do if you're drawing guys in from all these other teams. But it does mean in some cases, in New Zealand's case and in England's case, I'm not sure about in Ireland's case because I don't know of any real big gun guys that have left. It seems to be more fringe guys that you don't always have your top players available. South Africa doesn't have that problem. South Africa got 2 World Cups, able to pick their best players, which seems to be a pretty ringing endorsement for that policy. But South Africa does have very, very deep pools of depth to call upon in that you can take all these top Springbok guys, put them abroad, and the URC teams, the Sharks are kind of a little bit of an exception at the moment, but the URC teams don't struggle without that lack of depth. If you took all of the All Blacks and allowed them to go free reign and play abroad, would the level of Super Rugby talent drop? For sure. Would the talent come through to match it? It's kind of one that you wouldn't know until you tested it. Ireland seems to lose a few fringe guys. England seems to lose a few fringe guys. Wales and Australia certainly have lost a few fringe guys and sometimes star guys abroad as well. It's happened in New Zealand. It is certainly one of the risks of playing with that kind of restricted option. France is the maybe only one that doesn't seem to have an issue with guys leaving at all. I think France can pretty much take their pick of who they want to select. But yeah, there's certainly no perfect option. I can see why some countries want to go open. I can see why some All Blacks fans and English fans at the moment would like to see a little bit more flexibility in terms of the coaching selection options. What do you guys reckon? Is the national team the kind of be-all and end-all and you need to be able to select whichever players the coach wants? Or do you think there is a benefit in keeping the guys at home? Or do we just all need to be like France and just have a huge TV deal so it doesn't really become an issue? You guys let us know your thoughts. If you want to see me latest trek around China where I walked past a football game where a bunch of guys were swearing at each other, I'll put that up there or down there. That's 2 Cents on Tour. That's the other channel. But yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts on the selection policies and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.